If cash were outlawed today, would it make much difference in your life? What if the government ordered every person to have a government-issued ID card? Would anything change for you? So, is the world ready for the mark of the beast as prophesied in the Bible? We'll talk about it on today's edition of Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Well, it's something that all of us think about. We know that it's coming someday. The Bible very clearly states that it is coming. However, we hope it won't be too soon. We hope it maybe will not be in our lifetime. We hope perhaps that it will affect others but not affect us. These are some of the things that we're dealing with when we talk about this prophecy called the mark of the beast. Now, I think most of you know what that's about. However, believe it or not, I've met people who do not know, never heard of it before. I've asked them, now, you're familiar with the mark of the beast, right? They look at me with a blank stare. No, I haven't. Do you know, well, what about 666? And they'll say, well, isn't that the mark of the devil or something like that? And that's about it. So in case there are some of you listening today who are totally unfamiliar with the mark of the beast, we are going to take just a moment to read the passage. And for those of us who are familiar, it won't hurt for us to listen to it again. So we're going to Revelation chapter number 13, verse 15 through 18. And just so that all of us can have an understanding of the 13th chapter of Revelation, the setting, because the setting really adds significance to this passage. This chapter is divided into three sections. Verse 1 through 8 describes the coming one world government and the Antichrist, a political leader who will rule over that coming one world government. It states there specifically in verse number 5 that he will rule for 42 months. So it's describing the one world governmental system as it will be in the very end times, just before the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus to the earth. So that's the first thing we need to do and understand is the first segment of the 13th chapter of Revelation actually deals with the one world government. Then the next segment, verses 11 through 15, talk about a religious leader and a one world religious system that will be in partnership with the one world governmental system. We found out since Iraq that you can go in and conquer a nation militarily and that you can change its government politically, but until you change the people religiously, you leave, it goes right back to where it was. So you have to change hearts and minds, as President Obama likes to say. So the second portion of Revelation 13 deals with the coming one world religion and the leader of that coming one world religion, a personage the Bible calls the false prophet. So those are the first two sections of Revelation 13. Now we come to our text today, verse 15 through 18, which is devoted to the economy that will happen under this one world government, under this one world religious system, and in particular, how the economy is going to be used to force compliance and allegiance to the one world government and the one world religion. So that's where we're picking it off. So it's interesting. We have 3 segments of Revelation 13. Mikhail Gorbachev just happened to say in his book Perestroika that there are 3 things that cause war on earth: political conflicts, religious conflicts, and economic conflicts. Amazingly, this chapter in the Bible, written 2,000 years ago, agrees with Mr. Gorbachev, or maybe we should say Mr. Gorbachev agrees with the passage written 2,000 years ago. So let's go now. It's Revelation chapter number 13, verse number 15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, referring to the Antichrist, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So this is going to get serious. There's going to be a death penalty involved. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So this is going to be required to participate in the economy. You won't be able to buy or sell unless you have this mark. It says in your right hand or in your forehead. So no one can buy and sell except he that hath the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Then it says this in verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666. There it is, the mark of the beast. Most of us are familiar with it. Most hotels don't even have room 666. Most state drivers bureaus do not give a license plate out with the number 666 on it, because it is so known in our society as an evil mark or an evil number, of course, straight from the Bible. And that's the reason that people want to avoid that particular mark or that particular number. Okay, so let's look at what we're dealing with here. Is this describing a cashless society? Many people say it's going to be a cashless society. You're going to have a number. That's what you're going to use to buy or sell. Now, the passage doesn't really say that. It simply says that you will have to have this number. In order to get the number, you'll have to worship the beast. I think that means pledge allegiance to the beast. So you'll have to have the number or the mark. You'll have to pledge allegiance to the beast. And unless you do, they won't give you your mark or number. They won't validate. Let's say it's going to be a national ID number or a global ID number. They won't validate the number in the central database, so that anytime you try to use that number to do anything, it's going to say authorization denied. Now, all of us have seen that message at some time. You've got a problem with a credit card. You stop to buy gasoline. You put your credit card into the terminal there at the gas pump, and it'll say, if there's something wrong, if you're over your limit, or if there's been a change in your card, or if there's just any kind of a problem, it'll say authorization denied. Or it can happen in a department store. It can happen anywhere. So we're very used to making sure we have the right number. A lot of times they'll come on and say, enter your personal PIN. PIN stands for personal identification number. So if you have a debit card, you almost certainly have a PIN number, and you probably know it by heart if you use your debit card much. So it's your personal identification number. The mark of the beast may end up being called personal identification number. That's your PIN number. Everybody's so used to it. We might even take it without thinking twice about it. Okay, so this is what the prophecy says. But the question is, how close are we? this is going to happen. It's prophesied in the Bible. It's going to happen in any place where the Antichrist is in control. Once the one world governmental system is formed that is being driven towards right now by the process called globalization. Once this system is set up, this one world government is set up, then the next thing you want to do is to weed out the undesirable elements in this world government. I mean, we're living in a day, I woke up this morning to several stories about terrorist attacks. Big terrorist attack in China today, 44 people killed. Big terrorist attack at a downtown market in Baghdad, 30 or 40 people killed. I mean, this is rife around the world. Iraq's living with it almost every day. Many other places are living with it on a continuing basis. So everybody's wrestling with this war on terror. And remember when George W. Bush, what was it, 3 days after 9/11, when the attacks happened on the Twin Towers in New York, he announced that we were moving into a long war, a war on terror that could last as high as 30 years. Now, I've really pondered. We didn't even know who attacked the Twin Towers at that time. At least I don't guess we did. But yet, President Bush makes this incredible announcement that the war on terror had begun. I mean, we'd been attacked, this one attack. But he announced the war on terror had begun and that it would be a long war, perhaps lasting 30 years. So what was he thinking? What did he know that made him make this kind of a pronouncement? I'm not sure I can answer that question unless already there was a plan in place to remove dissenting voices from society, anyone that would not conform to the global man, to the New World Order, to global thinking. Now, I'm not making any false accusations here. I'm just simply saying that's the way the mark of the beast is going to be used. It's going to be used to force people to pledge allegiance politically and religiously. Anyone who thinks outside the box, anyone that does not agree with us, with what's happening. Let me see if I can help you a little bit to really understand this. Right now, if you work in the public sector and you make strong statements against homosexuality, right now, that's a politically incorrect thing to do. And people have already lost their jobs. I mean, just some kind of inference, even a posting on Facebook. We had a person that was forced out of his business. I'm talking about a multimillionaire. But because he made a private, well, at least a Facebook posting expressing that he thinks marriage should be between one man and one woman, oh, not politically correct, cut him off. Now, you know what I'm talking about. This is already happening among us. Now, where can that move to? How could that translate to, well, for instance, I'm a minister. Someone comes to me saying, I'd like to get married. And I would say to them, well, I need to meet your wife. We need to talk together so that you understand what the obligations of marriage are. And the man says, fine, we'll be there. Well, when they show up, it's two men. Now, do I have to marry them when I have strong religious principles against it? This is where all this is going.
One day I was listening to politics and religion, much like you are now, when a commercial came on about the Salvation Package. It's a set of 4 DVDs in which Irvin teaches about topics like Nicodemus' question to Jesus, what must I do to be born again? I remember Irvin said in the commercial, if you don't love the truth, don't get this because it will make you mad. Well, I was hungry for the truth, so I did get it, and I am so glad I did. I'd been studying the Bible for many years, but learned there was more in the Scriptures about what it means to be born again. When the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "What will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Jesus said, "Take heed of false teaching, for many will come in my name and deceive many." Now I know what Jesus was talking about when he made that statement, and I won't be deceived. The salvation package changed my life and my eternity. I'm so thankful for that commercial I heard just a few years ago. That's why today I wanted to record one too, for someone out there listening, searching for the truth. You will find it in the salvation package. Get the 4 DVD set for $65 or the individual DVDs for $20 each.
So we're talking today about the prophecy of the mark of the beast, a cashless society. Now, I'm going to be taking your calls after a while, and I'd like to ask you, all right, let's say that cash was removed from our society tomorrow. Would you function much different? Are you using credit cards or debit cards for most of your transactions? If you need your personal identification number, let's say it was your Social Security number. Most people have theirs memorized. I still, frankly, have to look mine up, believe it or not, because I've not made an effort to memorize it, and I don't use it much. I would prefer not to use it. I know the last 4 digits because people ask me that a lot of times for a lot of reasons. Nevertheless, most people can rattle off their Social Security number like it's their middle name. So if we implemented a system such as is described in the Bible, let's say it were a cashless system. And by the way, the Bible doesn't say it's a cashless system. It simply says you'll have to have a mark or a number in order to be able to buy or sell. So how could that be enforced if it's not a cashless system? Well, it's pretty simple. What they could do is to require every person to have their own personal identification number registered with the government in a database, so that you would have to have that when you apply for a job. Your employer would have to check with the government to make sure you're a legal citizen, and if you're not, he would be forbidden from hiring you. Well, if you can't get a job, obviously, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. So you would be frozen out of employment and thus from buying and selling. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be a cashless society, but the cashless society would be that much tighter, because that would prevent people who are willing to hire someone at a reduced wage but pay them in cash. That would, if it were totally a cashless society, that would even cut that off. And oh, by the way, that's being done a lot of places, as you probably already know. So what I want to hear from you today is, let's just say that a cashless society would be implemented. And if you were the Antichrist, that would probably be your dream. That way, every single purchase, every single transaction would be available at your fingertips. I mean, you talk about the NSA, and you talk about what Rand Paul has filibustered against in Congress. This would be so much more pervasive. Every single purchase you make, we would know how much and to whom. Everyone that pays you, we would know how much and to whom. It would be a totally monitored, totally controlled society. Now, this is going to happen, at least to the point of a person having to have a mark or a number in order to be able to buy or sell. And once you have that, of course, then you become trackable. And once you become trackable, you become controllable. And once you're controllable, you're a slave. Because control and freedom are opposite terms. If you're under control, you're not free. Someone else is controlling you, whether it be the government or whoever it may be. So consequently, that's what we're dealing with here. We're talking about a coming one world government that will fall under the control of a personage the Bible calls the Antichrist, or the beast. Sometimes it refers to him as the man of sin or the son of perdition. But it's going to fall under the control of one great political leader who will be directly under the control of Satan himself. And so once you pledge allegiance to this one world government and this one world leader, you're actually pledging allegiance to Satan, which is the whole plan behind this Mark of the Beast plan. Because in Revelation chapter 13, when it describes the one world governmental system, it describes the one world governmental system as having the body of the leopard, Germany, the feet of the bear, Russia, the mouth of the lion, Great Britain, the 10 horns of the 10 horn kingdom, which will emerge out of the European Union. But then it says, the dragon gave the beast its seat, its power, and its great authority. And it says just a few verses above that in Revelation 12:9 that the dragon is that little serpent called the devil and Satan. So Satan is the motivation behind this whole thing. And when the Antichrist arises in this earth, there's even reason to believe that Satan may personally possess the Antichrist. Now, you may say, I don't even believe in demon possession. Well, then you don't believe the Bible, because there's a lot in the Bible about demon possession. Now, there is a lot of controversy over that. Of course, many people will assign any person who's mentally ill to demon possession. Not always true. Sometimes there's other things that cause it, but yet there are some people who have been deemed mentally ill who in fact are victims of demon possession. That's where the Church of Jesus Christ needs to be a powerful church that can cast those things out, just like they did, the apostles did, just like Jesus did in his ministry. Okay, now let me see if we can pull all this together. So I've read the passage. How far are we away? Could this be implemented tomorrow? I've got some credit cards. I don't like to use them, but they're really convenient. You don't have to make exact change. You don't need, if you're getting gasoline, you don't even have to go inside. Just scan it, fill up your tank, take your receipt, gone. I mean, really. And there's nothing sinful about that. Nothing. It's just another technology whereby we do transactions. The only thing that's going to make the mark of the beast sinful is when you, in order to get your number validated, you're going to have to pledge allegiance to the Antichrist and his one world government. When you do that, you've worshiped the devil. And once you do that, it will bring damnation on your life, because that's the opposite of worshiping the true God, Jesus Christ. So that's the reason this subject is so weighty. Now, a lot of people are saying, yeah, but this is never going to happen. Well, let's take a closer look and let's just see, because there's actually two different people running for Republican president who would like to implement a system whereby you have to have a PIN number or a personal identification number in order to hold a job. Now, Mr. Marco Rubio, which I like some of the things he stands for, but I heard him at the debate twice make it a point. We need to implement E-Verify, electronic verify. That means if you are not registered with the government, there's a good percentage of our economy that are voluntarily using this program called E-Verify. But he wants to make it mandatory, which means you're going to have a number in order to hold a job. And there was one or two others. I'm not going to call their names right now. I will later once I verify. But I know for certain that Mr. Rubio did do that, and he seems like a nice person, and he seems like he stands for some good things. But anybody that's for E-Verify, personally, I'm out. And we are going to be bringing to you the stances of all the major candidates so you can know exactly what each person stands for in order to make your decision. And we're not doing this from a political perspective. We're doing this from a biblical perspective. Endtime Ministries has never endorsed candidates here, but we do make known their stances so you can make a decision from a biblical standpoint of who you should vote for and who you should not vote for. All right, now, I want to bring you one more thing, because if you're thinking that this could not be implemented forever, I'm looking at an article right now, and this article came out in June of this year. It came out in the Nigerian Guardian. It's under the name NGR Guardian on the 22nd of June. And the title says, National Identity Number Mandatory from September. From September the 1st, the National ID number, they're calling theirs NIN, National ID Number, shall become mandatory for all transactions involving the identification of individuals in the country. What does that mean? Well, let's read on. To the end, the National Identity Management Commission, which is in charge of NIN, National Identity Number, NIN issuance, has urged Nigerians to avail themselves the opportunity of enrolling in the National Identity Database to get their NIN, their National Identity Number. Now, I'm talking about something that's pending right now. They have till September the 1st to do this. In a statement yesterday, NIMC General Manager Corporate Communications said the agency has been advertising in some national dailies that the use of NIN shall become mandatory. All transactions offered by applicable government institutions from September the 1st. What are they talking about? Well, according to the Commission, these transactions pursuant to the Section 27(1) and 2 of the NIMC Act of 2007 include application for and issuance of international passports. That's the one thing you will have to have this number for. Opening of individual and or group bank accounts. So now you've got to have it for a bank account. Number 3, it goes on to say, also affected are consumer credits, purchase of insurance policies. Okay, no insurance policy unless you've got this number. Purchases, transfer and registration of land by any individual, national health insurance scheme. So if you're going to be involved in the national health insurance of Nigeria, you got to be involved. You got to have the number. Such transactions that have Social Security implications, registration of voters, so you're not going to be able to vote unless you have your NIN. Payment of taxes and pensions, got to have your NIN to do that. So now you become a tax evader if you don't do it, among other things. In other words, you're going to have this number in order to buy or sell. This is in Nigeria by September the 1, according to this article. Consequently, any government agency or institution, any bank, insurance company, and all other institutions offering services and or involved in transactions requiring the identity of an individual must first demand the national identity number. Now, don't worry about this because it doesn't kick in until September the 1st, which is, how long is that? Oh, that's, 18 days away? Let me tell you, if you're a Nigerian, you better be thinking about that right now. Okay. The article goes on to say, any individual, institution's body who fails to comply with the above has committed an offense punishable under Section 28 of the NIMC Act. So now they've turned it into a crime if you don't cooperate. Wow, this sounds an awful lot like the mark of the beast. Now, we're going to finish this article, and then I'm going to read to you what the punishments are going to be under Section 28 of the NIMC Act as soon as we get back to this break.
In a world where our culture is traveling down a road of spiritual mediocrity, do you want to be one of the few who travel the road of spiritual maturity? Then I recommend Endtime University. This 6-semester course will guide you through understanding the Bible, keys to spiritual growth, life and teachings of Jesus Christ, and Satan defeated, sonship restored. Watch the lessons at your own pace using the structured outlines. Use the quizzes and answers to test your comprehension. Receive a completion certificate when you finish each semester, and a diploma from Endtime University once you've completed all 6 semesters. Matthew 7:13 through 14 says, "Enter in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many will go in. Because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it." Endtime University will help you walk the straight and narrow path to spiritual maturity. Call 1-800-ENDTIME and ask about Endtime University today.
Attention Livingston, McLeod, and Princeton, Texas. Irvin Baxter's coming to your area for an End Time conference. He will be speaking on subjects such as the Great Tribulation, Sign of the 4 Blood Moons, and America's God-Given Destiny. End Time conferences are a great opportunity to meet Irvin and hear the latest events going on in Bible prophecy. Shop End Time product and meet other people like you who are wanting to learn the prophecies of the Bible. Every time I go to an End Time conference, I feel so energized, like one of the people that can be strong and do exploits, as Daniel 11:32 says. Go to endtime.com and under events, click the conference link or call 1-800-ENDTIME to find out more details about these conferences. We'll see you there.
So all this is being set up in Nigeria under the National Identification Management Commission. That's the NIMC Act, which was originally passed, I believe, in 2007. Well, here we are now, ready for implementation, and they say that it will be an offense if you don't cooperate. Let me read to you the penalties if you do not do what they have ordained that you must do in Nigeria. Under Section 28, number 1, any person who, A, without lawful authorization accesses data or information contained in the database. So if you access this database without being lawfully authorized, or if you refuse to provide relevant data or information to the commission. So if you withhold information from them, if you refuse to give them the information, or C, in giving any information for the purposes of this act, knowingly or recklessly makes a statement or provides information to the commission which is false in any material particular, commits an offense under this act. So we have 3 ways to offend: to access the database without proper authorization, B, refuse to provide the information, C, provide false information. All of those things are offenses under this act. Now, under Section 2, a person, well, actually, this is item number 2 under Section 28. A person found guilty of an offense under Section 1. Now, that's the section where if you without authorization access this national database, here's your penalty. A person found guilty under this subsection A, shall be liable upon conviction to imprisonment for a term not less than 10 years without option of a fine. Now, this is a stiff penalty. You access that database. Now, what they're trying to do is to set people's minds at ease. Look, we're protecting your information. Anybody goes in there without authorization, they go to prison not less than 10 years, and they can't pay a fine to get out. So this is not going to be slanted to favor the wealthy. Now, that's what they're saying here. It's written right into the NIMC Act. Now, any person found guilty of an offense under any other provision of this section of this act shall be liable on conviction to a fine of not less than 250,000, whatever their Nigerian money, whatever it is, or imprisonment for a term not less than 3 years. So if you give them false information, or if you refuse to cooperate with this, you listen to this, 3 years in prison. You don't want to be numbered? 3 years in prison. Now, that's what I'm reading right before me in black and white right now. Will it be that way into the mark of the beast? Worse. I already read it to you. I already read to you that if a person will not worship the beast, and that's what you got to do to get your number, that you may be killed. You'll be put off limits economically, and also many are going to be killed. That's called the Great Tribulation. All of you are probably familiar with that term. So here in Nigeria, if I were there right now, I would be telling everybody, hey, we're really, really close. The only thing is it the mark of the beast in Nigeria? No, because they don't have anybody to worship at this point or to pledge allegiance to. They certainly are being forced to bow the knee to the government, however, which is really too close for comfort. Okay, well, I want to hear from you now. And in particular, I want to hear to you about, would you be able to function tomorrow if there were no cash? If all of a sudden the government came out and said, we don't need cash anymore, everybody has credit cards, everyone has debit cards, so consequently, that's the way we're going to do business from now on, would it change your life much? If your employer said to you, hey, you've got to give me your Social Security number in order to hold a job here, which he's probably already done, then that wouldn't change much either. So if those things are true, are we ready for the implementation of the mark of the beast right now? Especially if E-Verify is implemented for everybody, and that's what they're wanting to do. There's already a bill passed by the Senate, and the House has refused to pass it. President Obama is urging them to pass it. It requires everyone to be an E-Verify. I've read it with my own eyes. I have a copy of the law. It was a Senate immigration bill passed in 2013. Already happened here in the United States of America. Now, you know that I believe there's a chance the United States will recover ourselves, become prophetically aware, and back out of the system. But I can't promise you absolutely at this point that that is going to be the case. So these are sobering times. I do want to come to the phones now. And calling from California, Ralph is calling. Hello, Ralph. What's on your mind today?
Yes, sir. I tuned in a little late, so I missed the first part of the broadcast. But what I'd like to address, I don't know, I will not pick the identification marked by the Lord's grace, but I don't know necessarily that what they're talking about now is the manifestation of that scripture. But what I do think is going to be one of the most pernicious manifestations of what's to come is something that's out now, and it's been going on for about a year and a half or so, called the Internet of Things. You know, the Java programming language was originally implemented to allow devices to communicate, the toasters and that type of thing. Blenders, your refrigerator will let you know when you're out of milk. But what they're doing now with the Internet of Things is that just like people communicate over the Internet, devices will be able to communicate over the Internet. Already cars, most new cars will use Wi-Fi to communicate so they'll know where you are at every moment. But just think if you're outlawed and they say, well, track this person, now I want all stop signs and fire hydrants and toasters in windows and front porch lights to follow this person. Can you imagine how difficult that would be to evade that kind of implementation?
Well, that's the reason the Bible describes the Great Tribulation as a time of trouble such as never been before, no, nor ever again shall be. It is coming. And all the things you've mentioned here, Ralph, are going to be used by the Antichrist because there are control freaks out there. I mean, they want to know. We're getting to the point anymore on your job. They want to know when you went to the restroom and how long you stayed there. They want to be able to track you, where you go in the building at all times. I mean, it's a time of absolute and total control. So you're referring to the Internet of Things. That will include the Internet of people. You know, sometime back there was a big move on to put an RFID chip in every product, everything created. And that way, already they're doing this in all the pallets. Every pallet that goes on Walmart's loading docks or unloading docks must be RFID labeled, or else they will not accept it. Because when that pallet comes on, all they have to do is read the radio frequency identification chip, and they know everything that's on that pallet at that moment. So that's the way they're controlling their inventory. They were moving to put the RFID chip. They were going to eliminate the barcode and put an RFID chip in every pack of gum, in every can of pop, of every item. They were going to do that. But then Catherine Albright went on such a incredible campaign against it and brought all these things to light, and the American people said, wait a minute, I don't want to buy a sweater so that every time I walk in the door of any establishment, they know where I bought the sweater, what credit card I used, how much it is, so they'll know whether I tend toward cheap stuff or expensive things or whatever, so that they can start throwing up advertisements as I walk down the aisle that are tailor-made for me. That's where all this is going. It's control, control, control. So, you know, you're absolutely right, Ralph. And
the thing is, they're doing that anyway, Pastor Baxter. They're coming in the back door. I work in the technology sector, I've mentioned before, but they've got the new EAV standard where they're basically, over the next few years, eliminating mag stripes that are on your credit cards or your driver's license or whatever other collateral, and they're putting a chip in the cards. And by October of this year, merchants, if they don't use this technology, in other words, buy a reader that will read these chips instead of their mag stripe readers, they are responsible for any fraud that occurs with someone that has used a mag stripe card. They have to use the chip technology in order to be covered by Visa or MasterCard.
Ralph, I just got a letter through the mail about my credit card, and they told me exactly what you just now said. That they're moving from the stripe to these embedded chips. And like you say, right now, if you use your credit card and if someone fraudulently uses your credit card, the bank absorbs that loss. But they're saying we're not going to absorb this loss after October the 1st because we're moving to a more secure system, and now we're going to require that the merchant would absorb the loss because they don't install the proper equipment to use the safer system. And I just read that just a week or so ago when I got my new card with the chip in it through the mail.
Yeah, I argued about 18 months ago. I was arguing with my colleague about this, but he actually works within the credit card industry. As a matter of fact, he works for the organization that processes Visa and MasterCard's transactions, and so he's really, really apprehensive about what's coming, although he's excited about it, but he sees the potential for real damage.
Well, it certainly is. And the thing is, we're not saying that this might happen. We're saying that this is going to happen.
The Bible, it's already happened.
Yeah.
They just got a date of October the 1st to implement it. You know?
Yeah, well, what you're saying, of course, has already happened. Yeah. I'm talking about the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
And all this technology is simply lining up. And really, technology has a lot of wonderful things about it. I'm attracted.
Do a study on the Internet of Things, if you would. I think you'll really get some eye-opening information.
I appreciate it, Ralph. Thank you very much. I'm up against the break. Got to let you go. We'll be right back. And I want to hear from you about, could you live right now in a cashless society? I want to introduce you today to what I call the Armageddon Hospital. It was October of 2010. The headline, Israel builds world's largest underground hospital, immediately arrested my attention. When I read that it was being built in Haifa, Israel, I fully understood the implications of this announcement. Haifa is located at the western end of the plain of Megiddo, the prophesied site of the Battle of Armageddon. Would the world's largest underground hospital, specifically designed for use in time of war, actually become the hospital to which the wounded of the Battle of Armageddon would be brought? It was obvious to me that the answer to this question was undoubtedly yes.
Go to endtime.com and under Irvin's Thoughts, click the Rambam link to watch the video.
I grew up in church, and like most kids, I learned the 10 Commandments. But the 4th commandment bothered me through the years. What does it mean to keep the Sabbath? Am I supposed to keep it like they did in the Old Testament? That's why I was glad to hear Irvin come out with a new DVD, To Sabbath or Not to Sabbath. Like most end-time videos, I was enlightened to see what had been in the Bible all along, but didn't know it was there. He laid out the scriptures in an easy-to-follow lesson, and now I don't have to worry anymore. I know how to keep the Sabbath. Get your copy today.
Let me pause just a moment to mention to you that Judy and I will be leaving for Israel this coming November the 12th. It's a 12-day tour. It will be the 12th through the 23rd, and we still have some room. A lot of people are signing up. It's going to be a wonderful tour, but we still have some room for you. So if you would like to go with us to Israel, I'm telling you, if you haven't been, you got to go. That's all I can tell you. There's any place in the world, if you had the choice of going to Israel or any place else in the world, I'm talking about Hawaii, I'm talking about Bahamas, I'm talking about Cayman Islands, I don't care where you choose. And I've been to both of those places. But if you're trying to decide between those places and Israel, it's not even close. Trust me. I'm telling you. I've had people go with me who have traveled the world. And after 2 or 3 days, I've turned to them and said, well, you've been all over the world. How does this compare? They've looked at me and said, not even close. If you're going to travel anywhere and if you're able to, I urge you, make your next trip to Israel. But when you go, you need to go with someone that understands the prophecies of the Bible, or you're only going to get a half of a tour. You're only going to get the history, and the guides are wonderful. They do a wonderful job of that history, and we've made sure that we get the best guides in Israel. But even that does not give you what you need by itself. Yes, we'll go where Jesus walked, where his disciples walked, where King David was. We'll go to all those incredible places, and it is so great to do that and to remember and to read the scriptures. But then we will go stand on where prophecy is being fulfilled right now and where prophecy is getting ready to be fulfilled. We will take you to stand on the place where Jesus will touch down when he comes back to this earth. Now, it doesn't get any better than that. I'm telling you, we will stand right on the Mount of Olives, and the Bible explicitly states in Zechariah 14, verse 3 and 4, that Jesus is going to put his feet right there. You'll stand there. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stand there and teach you the 24th chapter of Matthew, because that's where Jesus taught it the first time. And now it's recorded in our Bible, but you will never have heard it like you will hear it when you're sitting where Jesus sat when he gave it the first time, because, well, all the sights that you'll want to see, that they will be there. Okay, I'm getting right back to the phones now. Ross is calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Ross.
Yes, Pastor Irvin. Thanks for taking my call.
Welcome.
Yes, your last caller kind of mentioned some items about technology with the debit card strips, such like that. And I wanted to share a technology that was really new to me and that I kind of had Larry using, and just kind of wanted to get your input on that. My landlord has instituted I'm a renter, leasing renter, residential renter, in Texas, and my landlord has asked me to use a cash app of which you can insert your PIN information, your credit card information over the phone using a web app, and then that transfers directly to someone else's banking account. And, I was very leery of trying to institute that. The guy was a Christian. He understands some things about Bible prophecy, but I just see this as, an additional step that our culture is taking to make things easier in the transfer of money. I just want to bring that to your attention.
Well, thank you very much, Ross. And of course, we've got PayPal. We've got all different types of electronic means to pay for things. The banks very much want all of your car payments, your house payments to be made electronically because they don't have to bill you. They cut down on their expenses. Everything is done so quickly that no one has to get your check when you send it through the mail and then process it and enter it in. It eliminates all kinds of errors. So, this is everywhere. But this is all new. None of this was true 30 years ago. Everybody was either paying cash or writing checks 30 years ago. I remember when I was a kid, we had no credit cards. My dad didn't have any credit cards. Nobody did. The credit cards didn't exist yet. So this is all a development in the world. Even though the prophecy is 2,000 years old, the fulfillment is only possible now. It's one of the great proofs that we're in the end time right now. This prophecy for the time of the Antichrist was totally impossible 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago. Only with the invention of the internet and its pervasiveness and everybody getting used to using it, that's what had to happen before the mark of the beast could come along. Is the technology evil? No, it's not. It's the use of the technology. Guns within themselves are not evil. But if you shoot someone with it, that's certainly evil. There are many things that within themselves are not evil, but it's the usage of it. Well, that's the same way with technology. We're using technology right now to reach everybody in the world. This program right now can be heard anywhere in the world right this moment because of the wonders of technology. So things are used for good, things are used for evil. And so that's what we're dealing with right now. Back to the phones. Frank is calling from Washington. Hello, Frank.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. I just calling to find out if, people that are following Christ and doing all that they're supposed to be doing and stuff like this, if they got all this new ID thing that's supposed to come out from the NIN, and what are we supposed to do if we can't buy this, buy that, and we lose everything, and stuff like this? What are we supposed to do with ourselves?
Well, first of all, of course, this article I've read to you, I read from Nigeria. This is what they're doing in Nigeria right now. We're hoping to stop this in the United States of America, but the Christians of Nigeria are facing this right now. Now, can they go ahead and do this and be saved? Yes, they can. But because it's not going to be damnable until they couple this with a pledge of allegiance. Once they couple it with a pledge of allegiance, once that becomes an act of worship to the Antichrist, and I don't believe a person can take the mark of the beast until the beast is here, until the Antichrist is here. So right now, you can't take the mark of the beast. You couldn't take the mark of the beast today if you wanted to. But everything we're witnessing right now is setting the table. And this thing could be implemented almost overnight because everything is being put in place right now. And that's the reason that I felt so strongly to talk about this, because when this comes, now let's say it does come to America. I hope it doesn't. I'm believing that it doesn't. But let's say it does. What do? That's your question. Well, number one, you may have to depend on God to help you. You cannot comply, period. The Bible says if you take the mark, if you worship the beast, you will be forever damned. You cannot do that, period, if it costs you your life.
Right.
You cannot do it.
Even if you did, don't take it, your life is in danger anyway.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you don't take it, and you
Right.
hold your allegiance to Jesus Christ,
Right.
in some parts of the world, it's going to cost people their lives. They may be thrown into prison. They certainly will be put off limits to being able to buy or sell. And that's going to be, Europe is going to be one of the central parts.
Right.
And plus now with Nigeria, it's obvious that they got a head start. Throughout Africa, they're implementing this quickly because the people, many of them, they're told they got to do it, they do it. There's no resistance to it. So it's going throughout Africa now in a very rapid way. For China, they bought ID cards for all of their citizens 3 or 4 years ago. So this thing is sweeping the globe right now, all preparing for the mark of the beast, and that's what we need to realize.
Okay, so as long as we don't worry about that chip thing where the NIN thing comes to America, if it doesn't. Now you said there's 2 people that's running for president that's going to probably sign the bill for that.
They want a program called E-Verify, which means to verify electronically that the individual is a legal citizen. And in order to do that, you've got to have your name in the government's database with your number. And so they're using the E-Verify system. Any politician for the E-Verify system, in my opinion, does not have a clue as to what's going on and does not have a biblical understanding of what is going on, and therefore is dangerous to the future of the United States of America. I named one person that has endorsed it. I would love to see his mind change because he seems like a nice person. Yet at the same time, he endorsed it. He really pushed it twice during the debates. He named it not once, but twice. And I think there was another politician or 2 that did the same thing, but I don't want to call their names because I don't know for sure who they were. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, I just felt like that we needed to talk about this today, not go to sleep at the wheel. We didn't get to some of your calls or many of your calls that were not on the topic for today, so I wanted to stay on topic, but thank you very much for attempting to participate in the program. Nevertheless, tomorrow we'll be dealing with something else. Tomorrow will be open lines, so you can call about whatever you want to call about tomorrow. Nevertheless, let me boil it down to this. The Bible says everybody's going to end up taking the mark except those whose names are written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So what does that mean? Well, the Bible tells us we must be born again in order to have our name in the Lamb's Book of Life. So the biggest danger anybody has is not being biblically born again. A lot of people argue about what that means. But I published a brochure called What Do You Mean Born Again? It's available to you free of charge. Call us, 800-END-TIME. We'll send it right to you. However, it's available to you on the internet within the next 5 seconds. Go to endtime.com. Halfway down the page, What Do You Mean Born Again? Click on it. You can read it today. If you'd like to contact us, 800-END-TIME is the number. If you'd like to go to Israel with Judy and myself in November, call us, 1-800-END-TIME. Ask to speak to someone about the tour. We'd love to have you. God bless you all.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. It is a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening on a daily basis.
If you would like to listen to archive shows, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference in your area, order Endtime resources, watch our TV show, or subscribe to our free weekly e-news, call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com. and take advantage of what our site has to offer.
Connect to Endtime Ministries by partnering with us and help this message make a global impact.
Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to all of our loyal partners, listeners, and friends for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.